Hello and welcome to the Define Tomorrow podcast. I'm your host, Barry Coombs, and today I'm joined by founder and CTO of Droplet Computing, Peter von Evan.
Hello.
So Peter, obviously we've known each other for quite some time, going back to your days at VMware.
So what's that, 5, 6, 7 years?
Maybe even a little bit longer.
Yeah,
indeed.
We don't look that old, do we?
No. Some may not agree. So from your perspective, Peter, obviously you went from VMware to Liquidware. We've done a number of podcasts and videos.
Yep.
We've written some books, although you've kept them updated.
I have.
I do thank you for that. I don't know where you find the time.
Nor do I.
No, I think you found some way to bend time or something like that to make that happen. But now you're kind of on to the next thing, and Droplet Computing is your baby, founder, CTO at present.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit. So where's Droplet come from? What problem are you trying to solve?
So Droplet came from the idea of solving some issues that we were seeing a lot in the market that nobody really seemed to have an answer for. So obviously working at VMware and Liquidware and Citrix previous to that, everything was around kind of the VDI elements. And while VDI is absolutely great and solves a number of problems, there are also some networking type issues that go along with that. Like you have to be connected, obviously, otherwise you can't connect to your data center desktop.
Indeed.
And it was actually a live project that we were working on. And it was a very large manufacturing company. They were looking at deploying 30,000 Chromebooks with VMware. Absolutely fine. That's cool. So they were going to access VDI from Chromebook. So we went into a big kickoff meeting. They had their CTO there. They had the services teams. I think in all there was about 30 or so people in there. The CTO stood up at the beginning, took out his Chromebook and said, "Hey, what's the network password?" And everyone kind of went, there isn't one. And what do you mean there isn't one? I said, well, you wanted an offsite meeting. You got an offsite meeting. Okay, who can tether? Everybody went, I'm on Vodafone. You go through the top trumps of what network you're on, and nobody could get a signal. So he said, so you're telling me I can't access my desktop, i.e. I can't get my apps. I'm not really worried about the desktop. My apps is what I'm really worried about. I can't get them because I can't connect to the network. Correct? 30 guys went, correct. He slammed the lid down, walked out, project canned. So that was kind of the moment, if you like. It wasn't the light bulb. It was there's a problem here. So others got this problem. And what problem is it? It's not, VDI isn't a problem. It's how can we complement VDI and kind of deliver offline apps. So that's where the first point came from. And so we set out to build a prototype on a Chromebook of delivering applications offline and how to do that. And the answer was a container. How do we containerize an application and then deliver it to a platform where, A, it's not possibly supposed to run in the first place? And then the research went on from there. So we went out to see real customers, real partners like yourselves. Said, are you seeing this problem? And everybody put their hands up. And when finally they said yes, we found there was a big market. And the first thing was around legacy applications. It's, okay, so if you containerize, you're isolating. Can I run that somewhere else? And we kind of, that's one big use case. And that helps the whole migration piece because people want to move to the modern operating systems. Devices have changed massively. People want to use a Mac. They want to use an Android. They want to use something else that suits their kind of personal lifestyle. But they can't because the app says you have to use that device or that operating system. And it's almost trying to take the abstraction level one step further. So, with virtualization, we take OS from hardware, and we want to take app from OS and move app around and deliver onto any platform you like, and particularly for legacy right now. So we're seeing a huge amount of customers with XP apps still. And we use the word legacy.
Traditional is a word that others use as well.
Traditional, or we use the word production.
Yep,
because they
still are. Yeah.
They may be slightly old. If you look up the definition of legacy, it's extinct, prehistoric.
Yep.
Probably my kids call me legacy as well. I don't know, something like that. But you're kind of referring to something that is no more.
Yeah.
But then when you sit down with these customers, they go, "Well, my business runs on that," and you kind of delve deeper, and it's actually it's your core business apps. We're working with high street retailers that. In this particular one, I won't name them, their whole back office solution is based on DOS.
Yep.
And that doesn't tend to run on Windows 10 64-bit too well. So they look at VDI. VDI, it would work if the apps worked in the operating system. But they don't. So, you can't probably go and, well, you probably could with some platform virtualize DOS, but it's, and it's a lot of infrastructure. So, based on that research, it was like, okay, so the issue actually here is more legacy to begin with. But then when we go in and talk to customers around that, then Barry, our chief operating officer, and I have a kind of bet. If we go into a meeting, we don't come out with a new use case. Wasn't a good meeting.
Yep.
And so far, we've only had good meetings. Because people say, well, actually, I could do that with it, and we sit there and go, you could. Let's try it, and it works.
So we've got a number of things coming together at the moment that I suppose that is making this relevant. The first is obviously Windows 7 is now going end of life.
Yep, we got till January next year.
January the 14th, I think it is, next
January
year.
14th,
to get there. We've got the users demanding more freedom, wanting to use devices like Macs, Chromebooks, and things like that. They want to be mobile. Being able to work on the train is now not something that, it's a bit of a pain, I won't bother doing it. They've got to be able to work wherever, whenever, however, which whilst VDI does,
it does
9 out of 10 times, when you're going down the London to Bristol train track through the tunnels, through the countryside, you will have black spots. You will not always be able to guarantee connectivity.
Yeah, and it's not just kind of, we live a little bit west of everybody else, but it happens in London as well. You go through a tunnel, you go on the tube, they claim there's Wi-Fi on the tube. Have you really tried to connect to it?
It can be even more so in London because of the density. The available bandwidth can be even less. And I've had that problem recently when at the XL, trying to access some remote applications. Yes, I get internet connectivity. Yes, I can just about get to a website, but actually trying to use a remote desktop wasn't the right platform at the time for that use case. But people have been here before. People have tried to sort this problem before. So Citrix, VMware have all had offline desktop-like functionality.
They have.
And we also have seen Microsoft and VMware have technologies like AppV and FinApp. How do you guys differ from those other types of ways of delivering offline resource, offline desktop or containerized resource?
Yeah, so if we take yes, we know VMware had the offline desktop mode, which went in View 5.3 or somewhere, so a while ago. Good solution if you used it. Nobody really did. But the problem was you were copying a rather large virtual desktop, or rather a large virtual disk file of 60 gig, 40 gig. That took some time on some of the networks if you go back 5 years or so. And so nobody used it. I mean, I think if it was easier, probably people would have used it. Then we have the application virtualization and kind of packaging and layering technologies. So layering is great. However, you need to be online.
Yep.
Because you're mounting virtual disks over a network connection. You could do it to physical desktops, but you certainly can't do it when you're out and about. I wouldn't want to start trying to add files to virtual desktops and then try and push them across the internet if I get a connection. And also, as connections drop, does the desktop go away? Have you got to re-log in? Are you going to get the same desktop? It's going to have to reassemble the desktop again. It does work, but it's a little bit clunky. And then you have kind of the virtualization technologies. Now, while they're good, they don't offer 100% compatibility. So you might struggle with things like drivers or COM+ objects. And that's true of ThinApp. You're never going to get 100% ThinApp. We used to create a package and then maybe put some drivers in a base image or some other bits and pieces. And the same is true of probably AppV. You've got to go through that whole sequencing process. Does it work? No. Make some tweaks. Go back, do it again. Does it work? No. Make some tweaks. And it becomes, people have their whole job is sequencing, right? It's there's whole dedicated teams of packaging. So if you actually look at Droplet Computing and take what the kind of company name was at the beginning, or the holding company, if you like. So we trade as Droplet Computing, but the company name is called AppUX, and that stands for Application User Experience. And we don't want to mess that up.
Yep.
Users are used, creatures of habit, human, are used to using an application in a particular way, as is the IT department in delivering it. We don't want to take that away. So for the IT guys, and I used to have this, I was successful selling things like Liquidware Flex App. But when you go in and say you've got to do that whole setup capture piece again, guys, we've got to record, change some drivers, change some MIDI files, and you can see the look of the IT admins go, oh no, not again.
Yep.
How do we simplify that? And how do we make that more compatible? And not only that, if I go back to app layering briefly, it's Windows on Windows, thin app, Windows on Windows, App V, Windows on Windows. Kind of a theme here. It's delivering Windows apps on Windows, which is good, that you can then take some older apps and deliver them on the newer Windows platforms. But you said yourself, Barry, what about Mac? What about Android? What about iOS? There's all of these other devices that people want to use. You carry maybe 2 devices because, I've got my Windows laptop for work because that's where those apps work. And when I'm here, I've got my iPad because that works for me here. Yep. And then maybe I'm on the train, so I'm going to use my phone because it's a smaller form factor. But I can't use those apps.
Yep.
Unless I'm online and connected to the internet, and even on a phone, they're quite difficult to use. I mean, even with our technology, I'm not going to sit here and say,
there's a usability question.
Correct. If you're doing a massive PowerPoint slide on a small screen iPhone, you're going to struggle no matter what technology you use, basically. Unless, which we've seen one of our customers doing is look at the DeX, so I dock it.
Yeah.
So effectively the phone becomes, a portable thin client for all intents and purposes. It's got octa-core processors and quite a lot of memory.
Yeah.
Dock it, big screen, keyboard, mouse, off you go. The only thing that would hold that up normally is, you're not going to get enterprise type apps in Android.
Yeah.
That's not what it was designed for. But you're not going to stop users from buying an Android device. You see it on the TV every night, Samsung 10 this, and they're great devices. So let's make them even greater. Let's make them, maybe that's the only device you do need to carry around with you.
So what have you guys done then to overcome those hurdles? How are you kind of taking a step ahead of those applications that have tried to do this in the past and are delivering it in a way that's more suitable for 2019?
So our container, and it's not just me saying this, if you read our patent, we've not been challenged yet on what we've come up with. Okay. And our patent says something along the lines of how to deliver legacy apps in a browser on modern platforms, or something. I can't remember the exact wording. So we've designed, so our patent, our IP, if you like, is this container technology. And that is kind of our runtimes that has the basis of the OS in there. So very, very stripped out OS.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have some bits. You need some DLLs, you need some kernel bits and pieces, and maybe some drivers to run. So that's really stripped out. So it makes it small. So that gets over the hurdle of it's a 60 gig file I need to download.
Yep.
Now it's not. If I download our container with what we call the image file, the droplet image file, it's about a gig.
Okay.
So it's very small.
Yep.
If you fill it with apps, that's up to you. It gets bigger. That's entirely up to you. But it'll never get bigger than 20 gig.
Okay.
And we've set that limit by, that's what we see is, you want to deliver a few apps. We're not saying...
This isn't a new desktop solution. This isn't a complete... This is to augment a platform that you're using primarily.
Correct. And the way I always position looking at Droplet is don't look at it as another operating environment. Just see it as an app.
Yeah.
An app to run apps.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
That does make sense. Yeah, I get that.
Don't see it as a whole operating. You don't need to approach it because what we don't want to do is manage an OS.
Yeah.
What do you want as a user?
My application.
Your
my
applications.
Data.
Exactly that. So let's give you that then. And for the IT guys, do they want to manage an OS? Not really. They have to, and are probably used to it. But
they're worried about security at the end of the day. They're
worried about security.
Yeah.
So security, compatibility, and do I have to do all this work again? So we take our container with all our runtimes, we lock it all down, and we do secure it. So I'll just pick up on the security thing because today we've just actually released a press release.
Yep.
You may or may not have seen it.
Saw it
this morning. Good. That makes me happy because I was struggling with our website this morning, which is why I was late. Our new website just went live, by the way. It's not just struggling. It's me and typos.
Right. Yeah, I know the feeling.
You think after writing a book I wouldn't do that, but hey. And I forgot
the press release.
The press release, yeah. So around security. So we've had our container pen tested by NCC Group. Okay. So the big guys.
Yep.
And they have found that it cannot be penetrated from the outside, going in, and vice versa. Okay. Unless you specifically connect it to something, and then you've opened something up.
Yep.
But by default, it is secure, and we have the big green ticks in the boxes. If you go to our website and look at that particular release, I think the document's there as well, that you'll see that this adds an additional layer of security. Sure. So if you had an XP-based runtime container, it's not going to be vulnerable at all.
Yeah.
A, you can't see it, and B, if you could see it, you can't get in it.
So the container itself, it's not actually running Windows, is it? It's because what is the operating system that's running inside of the container?
That kind of is I don't want to use a pre-sales answer and say it depends.
Yeah.
But it does depend on what you want in it.
Okay.
So if you remember back, if anybody's listening to this, the Define Tomorrow event on November last year, I talked about I went on stage with an empty coffee cup, basically, and I just remember people looking at me going, is he mad? Especially Megan was going, he's gone up stage with his coffee in his hand. I was like, what's he doing? I was like, it's an empty container. First of all, do people have legacy apps? Yes or no?
Yes.
If you say no, you're telling fibs, right? Because you have. Here's an empty coffee cup. Mm-hmm. I can take this coffee cup, and if people are listening, I'm moving my hands around like I'm moving a coffee cup. I can take it anywhere. So I could take it to the car, I could take it to the train, I could walk around with it. It's portable.
Yeah.
So that's the mechanism to make my liquid portable.
Sure.
What I put in the coffee cup, okay, I've said it's a coffee cup, but I could equally put tea in there.
Sure.
Or orange juice, or if it's after 5 o'clock, a G&T or something.
Yeah.
So what I put in there is entirely up to me.
Sure.
So if you've got legacy Linux apps, there are some out there, we've been asked this, I could put a Linux kernel in that container, and you could run Linux apps on Windows, on Mac, on a new version of Linux, and then later on Chrome and so on.
Sure.
So it's kind of gives you the choice.
Yep.
So you can run it where you want.
Yep.
And you can run what you want within that container.
Sure.
So it's not just Windows. Yes, we could put Windows in there. You could put XP runtimes in there. You could put Windows 7 in there and lock those all down and cut them out. So we've not got a full-blown install of Windows 7. That's too big.
Sure.
We've not got a full-blown copy of XP in there. There's licensing things.
Yep.
Although if the customer's already covered by software assurance and enterprise agreements, they're covered anyway, so it's not an issue. And those are the kind of customers that we are targeting. Mm-hmm. Is cut that down. I mean, you can see it's a gig.
Yeah.
We can see that when we do some demos later on. The container is not very big.
Okay.
Our runtime bit is about 80 meg, so the bit on top of that. So to answer your question, you run what you want. What suits your environment?
What you need in the container to be able to run.
Yeah.
And how much resource typically is needed to run? Obviously, it depends what you're going to put in the cup is going to be your answer.
So yeah, exactly that. So our answer is, what does your app need today? That's what your app needs. Mm-hmm. We don't change anything. We're not changing the app.
Okay.
In any way, shape or form. There's no refactoring. There's no virtualizing. It runs natively in the container. Because then the next question that we usually get asked is, how do I package an app?
Yeah.
And I say, you don't.
Okay.
Don't use the word package. Don't use the word virtualization. Use the word install.
Okay.
Because that's what you do.
Right, okay.
So we have our own control panel on the container. So when you launch the container, you can switch it into admin mode.
Okay.
Password protected.
Yeah.
As an administrator, I can see a sudo file system and I can browse the underlying device.
Okay.
So that means I can point it to an installer.
Yeah.
So guess what? I run the installer and I do next, finish, application installed.
Okay.
Before I come out as an admin, I create a tile on our app launcher desktop.
Okay.
So we have our own
launcher,
which goes back to what we said before is running in a web browser. So we've got our own web browser inside the container.
Yep.
And we'll talk about the reasons why. Security is the main one. Create a tile, which is basically an icon, click, app launches.
Okay.
Hence why, if it runs on XP, if it runs on 7, if it runs on your flavour of Linux, we've done it on OS 2.
Yeah, okay.
Which we, again, on the video of the Define Tomorrow, it will run.
Yeah.
Because we've got enough of the runtimes of the OS inside the container for the app to run natively without virtualizing, without packaging.
Okay.
So far, we've had 100%.
Okay. And what's the admin experience like? So once you've done this once, how do you recommend people then get this down to? So you've got 100 laptops you want to roll this down to. What ways are people using to distribute your containers and applications down to machines?
So there's a number of ways. So the way we've built the container is it's a single executable file, regardless of the platform. So Windows is a .exe, if it's Mac it's a DMG, and I don't know what Linux is, I won't even start to guess. You might know what that is. I don't. RPM package or whatever it is. Yeah, sorry. I did know. There we go. I've learned something. as it's a single file,
Yeah.
how easy is that to distribute with the tools you already have in place
So you could
today?
use SCCM.
So we've got customers using SCCM, exactly. We're working with one university who are going to use Mobile Iron and actually use an MDM to put it on a device.
Yeah, so there's no reason you could use something like Workspace ONE AirWatch to set
Correct.
that down. Yeah.
No, you can use all the tools. Again, it goes back to the not changing the way you work today.
Yeah.
I mean, people say, are you going to have your own portal? Like, why would we?
No.
There's Workspace ONE. There's a Citrix Workspace. There's the guys at Liquid. There's a whole raft of... We don't. That's not our business. Our business is deliver the apps. It's giving you the engine and the mechanism to deliver the apps to whatever device you want, whether it's the native Windows, Windows on Windows, or run Windows apps on a different platform.
So users now got their traditional legacy old production application running on their nice new shiny device.
Yes.
IT are now happy because the insecurities of that application are now bundled inside the container.
They are,
They
yep.
don't have to worry about it so much. How about saving of data? So, for example, you've got Microsoft Word, bad example
Yep.
maybe, but some people in insurance, legal industry may need to run a legacy version of Word.
Yeah.
How are they saving the data inside of there? How's that saving outside of your container?
So the answer is the same way they do today.
Okay.
And you're absolutely right with your use cases. There are people doing exactly that. Typically, Excel is the favourite one right now. So we've got lots of people using Excel 2010
Okay.
purely because of macros.
Yep. Macros all over the place.
Yep.
And the other one's plugins.
And
Certainly
plugins.
in the legal industry.
Yeah, if I had £1 for every time we went, oh, Java, like, yeah, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be on a beach somewhere. But yeah, exactly the same way. So if we take the save option, so I've created my document, I hit the save button, I can save it inside the container.
Okay.
Containers are stateful.
Yep.
So when I turn it off and turn it back on again, the file is still there. Or we've created a shared folder on your device
Yep.
that is synchronized with a folder on the container.
Okay.
Private network,
Yep.
not seen outside, and they synchronize with each other. And it is a real-time sync. So, and we can do this in a demo later on, is if I drop a file in the folder on my Windows 10 Windows Explorer, and I go into the container, it just will appear.
Okay.
It's there. So you know, for Word, you just save. Or what we've seen people do is the mapped container, the private network,
Yep.
is just have that connected to your OneDrive.
Yep.
Have that mapped to G drive or whatever you have, your home drive, whichever, and then upload it from there on.
Okay.
So it's
So maybe a little bit of a workaround for the users to where they're used to going to a network drive or something like that, but they're still using their application. They still can work, still be productive,
Yep.
and they're not having to do anything weird and wonderful to try and get inside the container to get their data out of it.
no, it's literally. I mean, if you keep your data inside the container and you power it off, guess what? That's secure and locked inside the container.
Yeah.
If you don't put it in the shared folder, then it won't come outside and you can't do anything with it. But if you do come outside, I mean, those drives typically have got enterprise type policies applied to them.
Yeah.
So you can't do this and you can't do that, and it's going to get uploaded here. And if you've got security in place, stop you doing XEs and zips and all the usual kind of stuff. So we're not changing that.
No.
We're just giving the ability to get stuff in and out. That's how you install apps. You just you have this way into the container.
So other two containery type questions. Internet access is the other
Yes.
one. So you can enable internet
Yes.
access if you want to.
Printing.
The man knows the question.
I
yeah.
know
So
what
how do
Barry's
you
going to
do
come with
printing?
next.
Yeah.
You press print button.
Okay. So you're able to map printers through
You
to
map
it.
printers, put the driver in there.
Okay.
We are actually talking to the guys at Uniprint
Okay.
about universal print drivers, because that's a good way of
definitely.
doing things. But it's just print as normal. You can connect the container to the network if you want to,
Yeah.
or you don't. It's entirely up to you. If you want it to run completely standalone with no network access because it's on a Mac that is not domain joined, or a device that's not domain joined, people aren't coming into the office, they're a contractor, you can deliver them an image.
Yeah.
You could potentially time bomb that image, say, right, you're a contractor, you're here for 60 days. Day 61, guess what? The container won't launch.
Okay.
So I can control you for 2 months, but I give you a gold image of my environment.
So this could be Windows 10 applications in that example then. So it was, I've thought about it with traditional and legacy, but could you do, as we just discussed there, contract comes in Windows 10 device, you want to push down those Windows 10 applications that are yours to a contractor's laptop.
Yeah, that's something we were potentially exploring, because it wasn't originally on our radar. And this is the use case thing again, right?
Exactly,
that comes out is, we start off going in one direction and we go, actually, and we had this with the university. We were showing them one application, an application called Stata, which is a statistical analysis thing. It's the one that uses Excel, right?
Okay.
For its macros and bits and pieces. they started off with like, that's the one we want to deliver.
Yep.
We went in and showed them, and actually we were kind of in a dev type mode. We showed them an operating system running in a container. And he went, "You've just invented offline DAS."
Yep.
Like, I'm not sure if that's an oxymoron or not, offline DAS. But so I could build a gold image, a la VDI, that's what you do, put my apps in it, and just deliver it. And everybody gets the same thing.
Sure.
But I've not got the big infrastructure overhead.
Yeah.
And I don't have to worry about what device they've got.
Okay.
And that was kind of, there's another one of those use cases, tick. So we could, and that's something we're exploring if there is a big opportunity for that. Because if you say, well, I'm going to run your Windows 10 apps on your Windows 10, and people go, sorry, what? Why would you do that?
Yep.
Maybe you want to isolate a particular Java version, I don't know, or a snap-in or a plug-in or something. It could be that. Or you're going to deliver it on other devices as going forwards. But as we know, I think I looked at the weekend, there are 7 versions of Windows 10.
Indeed, and some of those are already end of life, I believe.
And some of those are already end of life. I think if it begins with a 15...
Something like that. I'm not up on the model.
And we're just about to go to 19XX versions.
Right.
And as we know, as some of those have changed, if I go back to my liquidware days with managing profiles, they change things. Like sometimes things are stored in a registry, sometimes things are stored in a database.
Yep.
Does the app know where that's going to be? So there is a use case for that. But if we have lots of people come to us and say, I've got a real problem, Windows 10 on Windows 10.
Yep.
Then that's something we'll certainly look at.
So in terms of today, what the products that you've got released, available, out with customers, fully supported, those are the...
So it's a Windows-based container. So if I take my coffee cup, so my coffee cup has got a Windows-based, and it's based on an XP kernel, purely because we went to kind of the lowest common denominator for those apps, rather than start kind of in the middle and that can't go that way and that way. And that container will run on a Windows 10 platform. It will run on Mac, and it will run on Linux.
Okay.
And depending on the hardware of your device, if you've got the Linux app for Android, for example, it could well run on there. We're just finishing up the testing on that.
Okay.
And obviously the Chromebook, because that was the first thing that we ever talked about was a Chromebook, and then kind of moved away from it slightly because we weren't seeing the demand, but that demand is now coming back again. And things have moved on technically, right? So the Linux app on a Chromebook, we've got a Linux version of a container, so that should work just fine. As I said, we're just finishing up the testing. So those the first 3, Windows, Mac, and Linux, definitely. You can buy those today. So come talk to yourselves about those. And then we'll move forward. So with our roadmap.
So with the XP kernel, if the latest and greatest exploit comes out for XP, the WannaCry Mark II, how could it affect you? Would it affect you? How doesn't it affect you? I suppose those are the concerns.
It doesn't affect us because you can't get into the container. So if you try and infect the underlying device, and this is the NCC report. It's not just me saying that. You can read about it in there. You can't get into the container.
Okay.
So it's not going to affect the container.
About if you're in the container already, so as in you're using a web browser that's from the container,
then you need to put in place what you would normally put in place to stop that.
But worst case is it's going to affect the container. If it's inside the container,
if it's inside the container, it won't affect anything outside of the container. So you won't blow up your Windows 10 box or your Mac or anything else. It will stay isolated in the container.
And this is what it's all about. When we're talking about legacy traditional applications, it's all about risk mitigation at the end of the day and understanding what risk can be taken.
Exactly. And if you can cut those risks down, I mean, if the container becomes corrupt, guess what? Delete it and download a new one. Because you're downloading a gold image. That's effectively what you do. When you're distributing a container, you're in admin mode, you put all your apps in, you put all your tiles in, you lock it, you distribute it.
And I suppose the use case is what you need to think of, because most people, there may be some that need Internet Explorer versions published through, but most use cases maybe don't need that internet access inside the container.
No, I think the most they probably want is the mapped drive. And well, actually no, because if you're going to sync to the internet, you're doing it outside of the container. You're going to take the shared folder, connect it to a OneDrive, and go that way. So you're not going to do that. And that's if you our chief development guy, he's a security guy. So it's always going to be security first. And some apps.
Fantastic.
But and you're right. It is the risk of running those applications.
Definitely, and that is the problem. And a lot of businesses want to move on from legacy applications. They want to move to software as a service, but they are held back. And at sometimes you have to evaluate what is the biggest business priority here. Do I spend the next 10 10 years refactoring these legacy applications to something more modern? Or actually, do I just need to concentrate on the one business priority and get those applications working in whichever way possible whilst we're moving forward?
And that's what we're solving with the container. We don't know what's coming next. There's always going to be something legacy.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking currently at Server 2003, 2008.
Yeah.
A question I had the other day from another blogger was, could you publish the droplet.exe file? I went, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes, you can, because I tried it.
Right.
So I put it on RDSH, just published it, launched it remotely. But then obviously they're talking more about server apps. Could I take a server app that's multi-user aware and put it in a container? The answer is, yeah, we've tried that. We just need to do some more testing. And if that's another big thing, then we'll look at server OSs, 2003, 2008. Because obviously 2019 is here now-ish, I think. Shortly.
Yeah.
And people are going to have the same issues. We've seen it with some of the Citrix environments that, in order to take advantage of the new versions of Citrix, and probably VMware too, I should look closely at that one, or should have read about it or written about it. I can't migrate because this version of Citrix doesn't work on that server OS. So if I go there, then my apps don't work because that OS isn't supported now. So, okay, you can do that. And we're looking at kind of the hybrid environment, and we're actually having some conversations with some of the thin client vendors around this, because as you know, a thin client is only as useful as the network connection and the VDI at the other end of it. What happens if that goes? You've got a book stand thing. I don't know.
and this is the thing that I talk about when customers are looking at thin clients, because in my opinion, if you can have a secure Linux-based operating system on a thin client, you then have DR options. And in this day and age, whilst potentially they wouldn't be able to access everything that was on the VDI platform, they probably could access their software as a service applications.
They can.
And if there was a Droplet container on there, maybe they could access
their legacy as well. So you've got this hybrid approach. So these 5 apps, I go to the cloud.
Yeah.
And I go to a workspace one, I click, I launch Office 365, whatever it is.
Yeah.
If my app doesn't work in that environment, okay, well, I've got another icon and it's now local because Linux-based thin clients, there it is. Well, I can do that. So now I've got this hybrid online, offline. We actually call it semi-connected.
Okay.
So because you could be online and offline. Because we talk a lot about offline and people go, but what if I'm online? Well, you can do that as well. It would just give you the option to do offline.
And I think it's about that flexibility, isn't it? So I think the next obvious place for us to go is to look at a demo of that. That obviously doesn't work too well on a podcast. So anyone that's listening to the podcast, head over to definetomorrow.co.uk. You'll see the video, the demonstration that Peter and I are going to be recording next. Peter, if people want to learn some more about Droplet, if they want to follow you on social media, where's the best place to go and find you?
So visit our website, so dropletcomputing.com. On Twitter, you can follow me at PVO71. Droplet.com is our company one. Actually, you'll get most of those from the website. If you look on the left-hand side, there's our Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, etc., etc. So go there, have a read. You'll see all about what we've done, where we're going, resources, some of the frequently asked questions that Barry didn't read first. So they're all original questions. But there's lots of that on there. Talks about some of our case studies with YMCA and Civica that we've already delivered today. Visit the website, and then just there's a contact us button. Hit the button. Talk to us.
Go from there. Brilliant. Thank you ever so much for your time today. Looking forward to see the demos next, and keep an eye on definetomorrow.co.uk for those demos.
Thank you.
Cheers.